It started with a storm. At first, it was just a shift in the wind, the kind of thing we'd learn to ignore after months of living on Mars. But then the sky darkened with a red haze that thickened into something more violent, something alive. Dust clawed at the rover's hull, like a beast trying to get in. The sensors screamed warnings, and the horizon vanished in a suffocating wall of grit. My wife, Lena, gripped the dashboard, her knuckles white, while the kids pressed their faces into the padded seats, trying not to panic. I had been through storms before, but this one was different. This one felt like the planet itself was trying to bury us. We couldn't drive through it. Visibility was gone, the engines already straining. My mind raced through options. Shelter was the only chance. I swung the rover toward the canyon ridge, hoping for some overhang or fissure to hide in. Instead, what we found was impossible. Through the swirling dust, a faint metallic outline shimmered at the base of the cliffs. I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me until the kids both shouted, pointing at the same spot. We pulled up close, and I realized it wasn't natural at all. A circular hatch, half buried in stone, smooth and seamless as if the canyon had grown around it over centuries. I leapt out into the storm, grit whipping against my helmet. My hands fumbled across the surface until I found a seam, a panel just waiting for a touch. When I pressed it, the hatch hissed, opening with a sigh like a giant waking from sleep. Air rushed inward, pulling at my suit, as if the place had been holding its breath. We had no choice. I waved my family forward, and together we descended into the unknown. The air inside was thin but breathable, carrying a metallic tang that clung to the back of my throat. The storm outside faded to a dull rumble, and for the first time since it began, I could hear my own heartbeat. We stood in a long corridor that stretched farther than our lamps could reach. The walls weren't made of stone or concrete. They shimmered with a strange alloy, smooth to the touch yet warm, as though alive. When my son brushed his fingers against it, faint blue lines lit up under his skin, pulsing outward like ripples on water before fading again. We moved carefully, every step echoing too loud in the silence. Doors branched off the corridor, each leading to chambers filled with alien artifacts, crystalline chairs shaped for bodies nothing like ours, tools that floated slightly above their stands, and panels of glass inscribed with shifting symbols. The kids whispered to each other, their fears slowly giving way to awe. My wife stayed close, her eyes darting from corner to corner, waiting for something, or someone, to emerge. Dust should have covered everything, but the place was eerily clean, as though its owners had just stepped out moments before. A table lay scattered with objects that looked like instruments of both science and art, delicate lenses, spirals of metal that resonated when touched, and sketches carved into thin sheets of crystal. The sketches showed cities of impossible scale, spires twisting toward alien suns, skies teeming with winged shapes. And then we saw the warning. Etched into a steel plate, repeated in dozens of languages, was the same message. Asterisk, do not awaken what sleeps hid at asterisk. Even in English, the words felt heavier than they should, vibrating in my chest. My son turned to me, wide-eyed. I opened my mouth to answer, but something in the silence whispered first. At the end of the corridor, the passage widened into a vast chamber that dwarfed anything we had seen so far. The ceiling arched high above, vanishing into shadow, supported by pillars that glowed faintly as if lit from within. In the center of the space rested a sphere so massive it seemed to anchor the entire structure, a globe of translucent crystal the size of our home back in the colony. At first I thought it was decorative, some kind of alien monument, but as we stepped closer I realized stars shimmered inside it, tiny points of light moving, rearranging, alive. Lena whispered that it looked like a map, but I wasn't convinced. The longer I watched, the more I felt the sphere wasn't asterisk showing asterisk the stars, it was asterisk watching asterisk them. The lights flickered in patterns, reacting to our presence, relining themselves as though taking measure of us. My daughter tugged at my sleeve, her small voice barely audible. Dad, it's looking at us. Then the room itself shifted. Lines etched into the walls blazed to life, and the chamber filled with cascading light. Murals we had seen earlier reappeared in moving images, playing out like some alien memory. We watched towering cities crumble beneath storms of fire, alien figures scattering into the void. There was panic, war, and something else, a desperate flight. The final image seized us all. A creature unlike anything I had ever imagined galloped across the stars. Its wings spread wide, its menore burning with light, hooves striking trails of fire through the dark. It was beautiful, terrible, and hauntingly alive. The vision faded, but the sound did not. Hooves, faint and echoing, carried down one of the corridors behind us. My wife gripped my arm. The kids pressed close. We weren't alone here, not anymore. The sound grew louder, rhythmic and steady, echoing off the walls until it seemed to come from everywhere at once. My breath caught in my throat, and the children clung to my sides, their eyes wide with both fear and anticipation. Then, out of the dim corridor opposite us, a figure emerged, a shape so impossible, so wondrous, that my mind struggled to accept it as real. It stepped forward with the grace of a dream. A horse, but not like any from Earth. Its body shimmered with translucent skin, beneath which veins of light pulsed like rivers of molten silver. Its wings unfolded with a quiet rustle, feathers vast and luminous, scattering sparks of pale blue across the floor. The menore and tail rippled as though woven from starlight itself, shifting colors with every movement. And yet, for all its alien majesty, when its eyes found mine, they were unmistakably alive, dark, intelligent, filled with memory and sorrow. Lena pulled the children back, whispering that we should run, but I felt rooted in place. Something inside me said that running would be the worst mistake we could make. Slowly, I stepped forward, my palms raised in peace. The creature watched me with a gaze that seemed to pierce through flesh and bone into the very core of who I was. Then, impossibly, it lowered its head. Its muzzle brushed my shoulder with a gentleness I hadn't expected. The moment it touched me, visions tore through my mind like a storm. I saw alien skies, wars fought with impossible weapons, and a civilization teetering on the edge of extinction. And in all of it, the winged horse was there, not as a beast, but as a guardian. I gasped and stumbled back, clutching my head. The Pegasus was not just real. It had chosen to reveal itself to us. The connection between us lingered even after the visions faded, leaving my chest heavy and my hands trembling. I could feel the creature's presence inside my thoughts, not speaking with words, but pressing images and emotions into my mind so vividly they became my own memories. The alien empire that built this base had not been conquerors at first, they had been seekers, dreamers. But in their hunger for power, they turned to forces they didn't understand. The Pegasus, this radiant being, had been their salvation once, a guardian gifted or perhaps discovered. But in the end, they tried to bind it, to wield it as a weapon, and in doing so they doomed themselves. The murals we had seen earlier were only fragments. Now I felt the full weight of it. Cities reduced to ash, fleets scattered across the stars, whole worlds silenced. And through it all, the Pegasus running, not fleeing, but carrying the last fragments of hope away from the jaws of annihilation. The thought pressed harder. The base was no refuge. It was a prison, built to keep the Guardian contained, its power sealed so it could never again be misused. The storm outside had done more than force us underground. It had reawakened systems that had slept for centuries. Power was flowing again, and signals were spilling out into the void. Beacons. Invitations. Warnings. I staggered, clutching the railing near the crystalline sphere. My wife steadied me, but I could see fear etched across her face. She hadn't seen what I had, but she felt enough through the way I trembled. The Pegasus's eyes met mine once more, and a single truth seared itself into me. We were no longer just trespassers. We had become part of the story, and others would soon come looking. It began with a low vibration that rattled the floor beneath our boots. The Pegasus lifted its head sharply, wings flaring as though it sensed danger before we did. Then the sound grew, a deep thunder that didn't belong to the storm above. My wife ran to one of the chamber's view slits, her voice shaking when she called us over. Through the swirling red haze of dust outside, black shapes cut across the sky, angular ships, sharp like blades, descending fast. By the time we sealed the hatch, the first bombardments hit. Explosions rocked the canyon walls, sending tremors through the base. Dust rained from the ceiling as the ancient structure groaned under the assault. The children clung to me, their eyes wide with terror. But it wasn't us they wanted. I could feel it. Their focus was the Pegasus. The hatch gave a shudder, then burst open. Dark figures spilled inside, tall and armored, weapons glowing with an unholy light. They didn't speak, didn't hesitate. They moved with the single-minded precision of hunters who had tracked their prey for centuries. The Pegasus stepped between us and them, wings spreading into a radiant barrier. Bolts of energy slammed into its shield, sparking like lightning but failing to pierce. The chamber echoed with the fury of the assault, yet we remained untouched behind its glow. Something in me snapped. I grabbed one of the fallen weapons left behind by an invader struck down by the Pegasus's flare of light. It vibrated in my grip, alive with alien energy. My son shouted a warning, and I turned just in time to fire. The blast tore through one of the soldiers, dropping it instantly. I wasn't a soldier, wasn't trained for this. But in that moment, standing beside the Pegasus, I realized we were at war now. The corridors burned with the chaos of battle. Alien soldiers shouted in guttural tones, their boots pounding against the metallic floors as they tried to corner us. Energy blasts seared the walls, showering sparks into the air. The Pegasus moved like a storm-given form, wings slashing through enemies, light cascading from its mana in blinding arcs. Every strike from its hooves was like thunder, shattering weapons, scattering armored warriors as if they were nothing but shadows. I fought too, clumsy at first, but desperation steadied my aim. Each time I pulled the trigger, the alien weapon roared, and I felt a surge of power race up my arms. Lena shielded the children behind fallen debris, but even she joined the fight, hurling shards of broken crystal like knives that seemed to hum with energy when they left her hand. We weren't trained soldiers, but we were a family, and no one was going to take this guardian from us. At last, the invaders began to retreat, their cries echoing as they scrambled back toward their ships. The base trembled as engines roared to life, streaks of fire vanishing into the Martian sky. Silence followed, heavy and unreal. The Pegasus turned toward us, wings folding in a slow, deliberate gesture. It lowered itself, eyes gleaming with something deeper than gratitude. An invitation. My children didn't hesitate. They ran forward, pressing themselves against its luminous side as if it were a long-lost friend. Lena and I exchanged a glance, the kind of look only shared in moments when a choice will change everything. We could have sealed the base and walked away, pretended this never happened. But as I laid my hand on the Pegasus's glowing mana, I felt it again, that vision of hope, of guardianship, of destiny. So I climbed onto its back, my family behind me. The Pegasus reared, wings tearing open a curtain of starlight. The world we knew fell away. Ahead of us lay the unknown, and we rode into it together.